Hey guys, welcome back, and today we have another week of box office, so let's get into it. Up first, we have & Juliet, 93% last week, 93.64% this week, and 761K last week, and 771K this week. This time last year, it was actually doing similar numbers. It is definitely not numbers that a production of this size wants to do. Now, yes, it has recouped its investment, it's done extremely well, but regardless, it still needs to be maintaining a healthy figure. And I say that is, at the minimum, 850K. And so it has probably lost money the last 2 weeks. Is it going to close at the end of the year? I don't think so. I think this has at least another year left in it. Vista Social Club, 93% last week, and 970K, and 96%, and 1,012,485. Cabaret, 67% both weeks, and 497K to 472K. At this point, closed it. It's over. It has to close early. There's just no way that this can stay open. It can sustain these kind of losses. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a big budget musical do this poorly and not close. I guess you could say, well, there is Boop, but Boop, as expensive as that was not nearly as expensive. Death Becomes Her, 95% last week, and 1,238,690 this week, 99%, and 1,331,563. Hadestown, 95% to 98%, and 651K to 681K. Again, these are not good numbers for Hadestown. Any show that has a 6 or a 5 or a 4 is not doing good. But they have had a very solid 2025. And the only bad month was in May. I think they had a couple of weeks of $1 million in the summer. Actually, no, they didn't. But they got close to that number, sort of. They were close to $1 million, kind of. And so, yeah, I don't think it's going to close this year. But again, I think 2026 is when we could see, & Juliet, Hadestown finally close. And the thing is, even if Hadestown does close, it's been here for like 6 years. It's had a long time. And the fact that it's still managing to do solid numbers without big names in it is very affirming to me. So could they? Hypothetically, yes, but its increase is making me feel better. Now, if they start going into the 5s and the 4s in the fall, which could happen, maybe it could close early, but I think with how well it's done over the past year, I think they will able to take those losses. I think once we see Hadestown start doing 500K and 400K consistently, and that kind of becomes the norm, which more happens, I feel like, in the January to May time slot, because you have Thanksgiving and Christmas, that could be the proving factor for Hadestown closing next year. Again, I don't want it to close, but it's not doing so great this week, or last week, and it lost money, and that's not good, even though it's been here for many years. Hell's Kitchen, 77% to 86%, and 761K to 848K, which again, is not amazing for Hell's Kitchen. It still lost money this week. Again, the minimum is 850K for Hell's Kitchen. It can kind of take these hits. It's had a very solid 2025 up until July. It did pretty solid in 2024. So I don't think it's going to close this year, and I think it will be here next year. I think that this might have been more of a blip than anything. I think it will kind of go back to 800, 900K, low millions, the occasional 7. And if that's the case, then we're safe. However, if this isn't a blip, then if it goes to 7s and 6s, that would be really bad for Hell's Kitchen. But I do think it will be here a year from now, based off of how well it did this year. And if you look at shows and how they decline, especially if it's something that's doing as well consistently, it normally happens over a longer period of time. And I think that we're maybe seeing that with Hell's Kitchen. Just in Time sells out. 1,293,737, and 1,276,340. Maybe Happy Ending sells out, and 1,373,083 to 1,436,776. Moulin Rouge, 92% last week and 919K, and 97% and 990K. Again, I don't see how this is still continuing to go on. This show needs to make $1 million. So I do think we could see still 2026 early closing. Mince Meat, 89% to 95%, and 580K to 620K. So a big improvement, but if I'm a producer of Mince Meat, I would not extend it. And on a high note, Six is doing better, but still not great. 71% to 79%, and 571K to 630K. Again, I don't think it's gonna close this year, but we could be in its final couple of years. It's already been here for 3 years, so even if it does close next year, it's already become a very long-running, successful production that recouped its investment. And I think it will still be here a year from now, but it might be on the verge of closing. With how inexpensive it is to put on, I think it's going to take a while. And it had a very solid year, actually. It wasn't a horrible year where it did 6s and 5s consistently. That's been more of a current thing that's kind of come up. Stranger Things, 72% to 77%, and 858K to 893K. So a very poor showing for that show. And again, if this was another musical, like a Dead Outlaw, right? Perfect. But Stranger Things is $1 million weekly show. It has, lost more money than it's made money. So they will, at the latest, close this maybe in January of 26. But if I'm a producer, I'm like, you know what, guys? Let's see how the winter goes. If the winter doesn't happen, let's just close. And it will come off as a big, not a failure, but a huge disappointment to Netflix. The Great Gatsby, 80% to 81%, and 831K to 858K. Again, that's not great. It probably lost money both weeks, but it has had a very good year. And couple on the fact with that it has survived in the 800K place before, I think this is more of just a blip and it's going to be fine. And then The Outsiders still sells out, and 1,062,850 last week, and 1,050,969 this week. So again, it's still very good and it's still very profitable. But we're starting to see its grosses significantly soften, and it can take those hits because of how much money it's made over the last year. And I also think that, listen, I like the Outsiders and The Great Gatsby. I saw both. I'm not a huge fan of either, but there is something to be said that it's very Gen Z, teenage, female, TikTok, kind of trendy shows. And trends, as you know, and TikTok stuff doesn't tend to last. And so maybe, potentially, that interest is starting to wane. And with Brody Grant leaving, I think, soon, we could see a decline in interest in it. Even if it falls, and by Outsiders, to the 900K or even 800K, it still managed to maintain 1.1 million at the lowest for over a year and a half, so, very impressive. And they can take those hits, and I think this will still be here for many more years to come, especially because, yes, it is a very expensive production to put on, but, it's made so much money that it can take some hits. I would say that 900K is the lowest it goes to. It should go to. 800K is not good. Not good. It can take it, but not for too long. But anyways, those are my thoughts. Like, sub, comment. Follow me on Instagram. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.